Welcome to lesson number 3 in the VP Culture Value Science class. And we're going to be diving into more details about values and how to create them in your culture. We're going to be exploring in more detail experiential values, specifically trust. So let's dive into this. So we've talked about creational values being the small things that you do that helps you to define what is excellent in your craft or in your service. So in your product and your service, what are the things that define and make your service or product valuable? Then we create experiences. These things that you do here create experiences here for other people. So let's expand experiential values and look at what the two sides of this are. Now, there are calming experiences. So everyone wants to be able to have experiences that they can go through life and their energy level is lower and they're not energetically engaged in some sort of like goal-driven activity. They're in an activity where it's just relational primarily. Okay, and then there's the excitatory ones where you're excited and you're engaged and your body is more driven in some sort of goal-driven activity where you're creating something, you're becoming something. So those are the two different things, and that corresponds, as we said, to your vagal tone, where your body will either go into calm or into excited mode. These are two modes that your body and your nervous system go into, and you have to be able to do both of these well. So calming values are going to be defined as trust, harmony, and peace. And you move horizontally through these things, actually. You have to create trust first, and then you can create harmony, and that creates a peaceful environment where you can engage without stress or fear of reprisal. So, and then you have your excitatory, which is wisdom, nobility, and joy, where you're using wisdom to craft things which in a self-sacrificial way, which is nobility, to create joy for yourself and others. So that's the difference between these two levels, and we'll be exploring them one grouping at a time, one value, major value at a time, and we're going to be delving into trust here in this section. So trust, what is it? How do you build it? Can you communicate that to your group? Can you communicate that to your team, to your culture? How do we create trust? What are the three core features of trust? Can every leader go, I know what trust is. It's this, this, and this. Well, hopefully by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to create that. So the primary question for trust is, are you a friend or a foe? If we answer this question in the positive, we have trust. If we don't have trust, you might not be an enemy completely, a foe, but someone that is not totally your friend. So there's a bit of a scale here. So the primary question is for trust. Are you a friend or a foe? And that is the basis of whether you're going to have a relationship with other people or not. So trust is the foundational value that we must deploy first. Now, trust is built on authenticity, clarity, and consistency. Authenticity, clarity, and consistency. So how do we build that? So let's start with authenticity. What is authenticity? Authenticity is speaking reality and living reality. So oftentimes people misunderstand that authenticity is just about what I say. Do I speak the truth? But as we talked about in the emotional science section, that usually deception happens first within the emotional realm. Am I emoting in a way that is actually corresponding to how I actually feel? I'm not covering it up. I'm not putting a smiley face on it when it shouldn't be smiley, and I'm not putting a straight face on it when things are going well or things are going bad. So I'm not trying to disguise things. I'm letting people know. And remember, we talked about how this, you can't really hide. People know because of our vagal nerve system what's going on, that there's something wrong. They might not be able to pinpoint what it is, but they can pinpoint that there's inauthenticity happen. And when that happens, we break trust. So secondarily, do your words match what you're thinking? Now, that doesn't mean you need to blurt out everything that you say. There's a time and a space for you to be able to say things appropriately and in measured fashion. But more often than not, You need to be able to speak what we call with candor. That's saying what needs to be said when it needs to be said. That's different than being dishonest. You could not speak the truth when it needs to be said. So you wouldn't be lying, you're just withholding what needs to be said. So it's very important in authenticity that you speak with candor. So you're candid with your speech and you're candid with your emotional tones as well. So that's what authenticity is. Now, inauthenticity is this. I hide things from you. Again, I usually start by hiding my emotions. How is everything? Great. How's everything? How's the report going? Oh, it's fine, even though it's not. I'm a little bit nervous about it. So in authenticity, we'll begin to also hide thoughts from people. You're not telling people really what you're thinking. And again, this often happens where people start to sense this before they start to encounter your lack of candor, your inauthenticity, your attempts at slight deception and things like that. A little bit of hyperbole towards your own benefit rather than being really clear with what you're saying. So authenticity is something that you should talk about and clarify within your organization. What does that look like? How do we create that with every little step that we take? It requires some discussion within meetings. It requires some activities that you actually practice as a leader. So the second part we talked about is clarity. What is clarity? Clarity is ask in detail for what you want and need. So that means defining what is done. I need this on Thursday at 2:00 and it needs to incorporate these elements specifically. So that's one form of clarity. You could say another form of clarity is saying this person will be heading up this team and doing these particular activities. I will be doing X, Y, and Z. Instead of the opposite would be what we call mind reading. Make people guess what you want and then be mad if they don't guess what you want. This is something that breaks trust time and time again. Leaders will just assume that everyone knows what they want. Assume what done looks like. Assume what the creational values of excellence are. And you just have to know. I'm not going to tell you. And that lack of communication, that lack of clarity breaks trust. The final one is consistency. Are you constantly keeping your promises? Consistency is do what you say you will do and no excuses. So 9 times out of 10, nobody's perfect. When you say you'll be there, you'll be there. When you say that you're going to do something, you do it. Like a surgeon, they know how to practice their craft every single time. People will be looking to you. Do you actually do what you say? Or are you constantly coming back and saying, I've been so busy, I do so many important things, I could never come to this meeting on time. I could never deliver that paper that I told you I would on time. It's better to say, I can't do it at that point in time, but I can do it this time. Because then you're being consistent. Don't just tell people what they want to hear. Tell them how you can deliver without excuses consistently. So consistently be on time, consistently deliver, consistently do what you say what you'll do. The lack of consistency often shows up in the realm of blame. Do you blame for why you cannot do what you promised? Are you blaming outside circumstances? Are you blaming other people in your organization? Are you blaming the fact that you have so many important things to do and you're playing some sort of a victim? So consistency or a lack of consistency is often characterized by a lot of blaming. We don't like to call them excuses. We like to just blame others and blame other things and other circumstances. So what we need to do is we need to discuss these dilemmas within our organizations. How do we create trust within our organization? How do we neglect trust within our organization? How do we break trust within our organization? So again, it's the moving from creational to experiential values. What little things that we do that create trust? Like when we say to a client or a vendor, we're going to deliver this at this point in time. Do you deliver it at that point in time? What other small creational things end up creating the experience of trust within your organization? And remember, trust is the cornerstone of all relationships. We can't move on from any of the other values until you establish trust. So if you don't start here, if you don't create trust, you're not going to be able to move forward well with anyone else or anything else within your organization with much energy or much success, because trust is the cornerstone of creating all relationships and all culture. It starts here. This is a foundational value that you must create. And these experiential values, they're linked together. Every creational step you create will create experiences. So that's what creates trust: authenticity, clarity, and consistency. Can you be that kind of a person that creates this? The foundation of our relationships is these 3 things: authenticity, clarity, and consistency.